All right, here we go. Now, I'm doing a building video here. Normally, I don't deck build, I net deck, which means I go to the internet, Netrunner DB, I find a deck that I want to play that is legal in the current format that I'm in, and I take that deck and I play it. Occasionally, I will tweak a few cards in it. However, I really enjoy that because it helps me focus on the fundamentals and see what a good deck is, because I really have no clue. However, I've been playing for a while and I'm starting to get a little bit more of an understanding of what makes a decent deck, definitely not a competitive level deck. So this is my newest iteration. If you recall, I was playing, if you go back to my last deck building video, you'll see I was playing Gabe and from Criminal, and so now I've moved on to Anarch. I've been playing Criminal exclusively for almost 300 games. Out of 315 games, I am currently probably have played 310 of those with Criminal. So that said, I am now moving to play a lot of games with Anarch for a while. I want to experience all the intricacies, all of the nuances, everything that's going on in Anarch as much as possible, learn a whole bunch of the cards. That way, no matter what faction I end up deciding to go in with in the end, even if I swap around, that also gives me the flexibility to swap around, but also it gives me the ability to identify cards that I can pull in from those other factions into whatever faction I'm playing, because I'm semi-versed in the other the card pool, right? So in the modded format, again, if you're gonna if you I'm definitely interested in some information on that, but if you are going to provide some info on it, then what you need to do is you need to set your decks to wait for it. You're going to go to in Genteki, you're going to edit this, whatever deck you're trying to build, let that marinate, and then you're going to go to collection and you're going to select System Core 2019 and Ashes. That's the only cards that are legal, so the rest of these are not in this card pool. And then you're also going to make sure you want to go to settings and make sure you have 3 core sets to choose of System Core 2019. So all that happens, and now you can come over here and see the many options you have for just events, hardware, identity, so forth. Anybody who's probably going to be critiquing me probably already understands that, but the illegal card pool is System Core 2019 modded. All right, so back to what we were up to here. So in this deck, I sat down the other day. It probably didn't take me more than, I don't know, 30 minutes, 40 minutes. I pulled up I started with events, and I started working through just Anarch cards, and I started asking. What I did was I added like 3 of anything that looked really good at first, right? Like Isolation, Machine, Run Amok, or any of that I saw, and then I went back later and I reduced those as I added some other ones, some other key cards. I think I added Retrieval Run later, but that ended up allowing me to reduce some of these that I had 3 of at first. Now that I'm looking at this, I'm starting to see I have a lot of recursion here. I got 2 Simmel chips, I've got a Retrieval Run and a Harmony AR. I might could swap those out for something else, but it might be good. So let's go through and take a look at what we're working with here. So with the event portion of it, I pretty much made sure I had a key card stem hack. I've never really spent much time with stem hack, but I know with cards like Simmel chip and different cards like that, you can get some sort of install going on with them as well, even though, and just having that boost of economy to get through a server when I need it is just vital. run amok. This is one I've seen used pretty well. This is really good for if somebody's got a Glacier remote server. I'm gonna bust in there, and then if they res anything, I get to trash one of those even if they stop me. So that's a nice piece to the puzzle, I do believe. This isolation right here. So the thing about this isolation card right here is I'm gonna gain $5 when I use it. Maybe more with some of these cards, like what is it, Mystic Miami lets you use the credits on it to play events, so I could potentially get a discount on that and make the whole 7, but I have to trash a resource. So I decided to flesh out a large number of resources in this deck, and we'll go over that in a minute. And these resources, most of them are money generating resources as well. And there's another reason why I have a bunch of resources is because I'm using Odor and Ute, I don't know. Ute, both of those require you, if you want to use this icebreaker more than once per run, so if somebody stacked up 2 code gates on the server, I wouldn't be able to get through that server unless I had 3 virtual resources installed, so that I can use that middle ability, which is to break a code gate as normal, instead of just spending credits one time to use that ability once per run. So that gives me flexibility to make sure these become normal icebreakers, if you will. So Ordor and Ute require me to have 3 virtual resources, and as you can see, almost all of my resources are virtual. A large number of them. I'm running 2, 1, and so that's kind of the flow of that. The goal is to ultimately have my breakers out. If I can get all my breakers out and I can have some decent money, that's the end goal. Then I can adapt to whatever the corp is doing to accomplish that. We also have this Keiko here. This Keiko right here gains you 1 credit every time you install a companion. So not only are these companions virtual, but they're also companions. So therefore I get $1 every time I install one of these, which I'm going to install them and then trash them a lot of times because of the isolation. So I install them, I'll either gain $1 or I will get the $1 back for free. Then from the Keiko, it also gives me +2 memory, which is important. I need that because I've got some pretty hefty I got a pretty hefty program suite going on. I've got the Gachapon to get in there and find the stuff I'm looking for. This lets you install it for free, trash it, pull 6 cards, install a program or a virtual resource. Then from among the set aside card, and I get to pay 2 less for it. Then I shuffle 3 of them back into the deck, and then I lose 2 of them out of the game for good. Small losses in big business, if you will. Next is Devil Charm. I ended up using this to good success. This one's nice to have out there in case all of a sudden you get a res on something that might be 8 strength and you didn't have the money. It's a great saving hardware right here to just trash it. Let's see, is it remove it from the game? It reduced, I ended up reducing a archer down and had to pay a few the bucks to break the subroutines, but I did not have to get my Odor up to strength, which would have cost me 6 money. So I got to ignore that whenever he bounced that on me, and that was really nice. So I got some nice little pieces here to help me with face check and ice, and the Simmel chip helps me go in and pull back. I was really using it in the last game to pull back these imps here, because once you use the 2 virus counters to trash something, it's nice to be able to trash those and bring them back with the Simmel chip to get more. Or if I need any of these others, maybe some of my breakers get trashed, I'll be able to pull those back as well. Now, the way it all comes together, again, here's the recursion. This lets me pull 5 cards back to my deck as long as they have different names. For instance, if I could do a Run Amok, a Stem Hack, a Sure Gamble, a Devil Charm, and a Gachapon, I could not do 2 Gachapons, right? So that's a nice little piece to have just in case I need it. I could probably remove that and replace it with maybe even, I almost kind of want to go with another diesel at this point for more card draw. I do have a good bit of card draw. I got the Mosh in here. I've got a diesel. I've got a Class Act. And I've got the Gachapones. And then I've got the recursion to go along with that. So I think I'm pretty good on draw. I think I'm pretty decent on money, because here's why: a lot of these resources end up covering a lot of money along the way. But let's get into these programs. So I got the standard corridor. Can't add a paperclip. It's not in this format. So the corridor is my barrier. I got 2 of those. I got a data sucker, which is good. I almost probably need to replace something to get me 2 of those just in case, because that ended up being a major part, and it worked really well with the Mimic. Obviously, everybody knows it works well with Mimic, but if I can install this Mimic and have it flowing good instead of the Odor, I think that is probably a better option in the long run as far as monetarily beneficial. 2 imps, a Mimic, an Odor. So I got 2 sentries, I got 2 code gates, I got a Force of Nature and a Ute here. Some of y'all might say choose one or the other. I'd be interested in hearing your feedback on those. And then I got the Stargate, and I've never really used Stargates before, but I ended up using the Stargate, and I found it to be pretty awesome. Unfortunately, they put a toll booth in front of it, so I was dropping $3 every time, plus a few to get it up to strength and break, but it ended up getting the job done quite well. I was able to trash 2 agendas. So learning the flow of Stargate, really a lot of these cards I've never really played with consistently with, so this is almost totally me getting familiar with however many unique cards that is there. Probably 20 cards out of the card pool I'm getting familiar with. So that's really awesome. I'm enjoying it. But anyway, so I didn't have any real plans with the programs at first. I obviously wanted the imps because I've seen them trash stuff super proficiently, and then the simul chip to bring them back mid-run is great, right? So that's a lot of going on. And then with the simul chip, you can trash the old imp to bring in the new imp, which is great. So, and then the Stargate, I've seen those work amazingly along with turning wheels to great success. So I wanted to go ahead and give Stargate a run as well, and I managed to surprisingly use those somewhat efficiently in my last modded game, which you can see from the modded 1015 video. So the resources is where this deck really gets fun to me, right? I like having the run amok. That's nice to have. I like having the imps and the Stargate. It's something new that I really hadn't ever dabbled in. I'm enjoying those. The Gachapon's really cool. Kaiko is nice if you can get that out first thing. Man, I had that out first thing. It was amazing. And then, but these resources, they get really cool. So the Climatic Showdown lets you remove it from the game to choose a server protected by ice. The corp has to either trash a piece of ice protecting that server, or the first time I make a run on either R&D or headquarter that turn, I get to access 3 cards, basically 2 additional cards from that server. So I was able to really I was able to put that on a remote that had 4 servers. He chose not to trash it. I ran on headquarters, saw 3 cards. Then you can use that imp to trash stuff, might steal an agenda, and so forth. So it's almost a modified legwork that I'm really feeling for the Anarch faction. The Fencer Fueno, unfortunately, the deck I was playing didn't have a whole lot of assets, because this thing would have been super awesome had I been able to trash stuff. I kept running in there, and every time I ended up getting stuff I couldn't trash because it didn't have a trash cost, so I'd have to use imp or not trash it. So I ended up spending $1 every turn to retain it. Now, Ice Carver, this one ended up working pretty well for me, lowered the strength, and it's really cheap, and here's why. This Paladin Pamu right here, it lets you install non-connection cards. I got no connection cards, I don't believe. Maybe this class act is a connection. Okay, I got one connection. So every other card in this deck, at the start of my turn, I get $1 on this card, which I can then, and if I didn't install something one turn, I'd have $2 or $3, and then I could go out and install them and any of my cards except for class act, and use those credits for basically use those credits to install it. And when I install that, I get it for free with the Kaiko here. So that was amazing. The Trickster Taka lets you use the credits during runs. Used a ton of that throughout. I'd get a credit every turn. I'd basically run through a server, and the first time I needed to spend some money, I'd use the Trickster Taka credits, right? And then the Mystic Miami, I used that a couple times, and in fact, what I ended up doing is I ended up installing that, basically getting it for free because of Kaiko. Then I ended up using a credit to play the isolation, so I ended up getting 6 credits instead of 1, and then trashing the Mystic Miami because I really don't have a whole lot. I need to, you know what? I could do better at that by keeping one of those or not trashing that. I trashed it, and then I didn't have any of those reoccurring credits for events, and as you can see, I have enough events that I could use save some money throughout the game. So I really should have kept that Mystic Miami out, but I needed that money, so I used isolation to trash it and gain $6. So I have to keep that in mind for future items. This liberated account, it's self-explanatory. You spend $6 up front, but then you're gaining $4 every time for a click. So I used several of those, or I used I used at least 2 of them. And then class act's just some draw that I got to help me get through my deck. I could probably remove that and use the influence. I could probably remove this class act and the Harmony AR therapy, because I felt like I had plenty of draw and I never even got my class act, and it's pretty expensive. So I might actually have a couple of tweaks, but I'd be interested in hearing y'all's opinion first. I think with 2 simul chips and a retrieval run, I might be good to get rid of the Harmony AR therapy and the class act, and that's 7 influence that I might could spend on something really cool, like maybe even some inside jobs or something, just to give me that burst of bypass through ice. So I'm interested in y'all's opinion on those tweaks. Let me know what from the modded card pool could be a good modification to this deck. But so far the deck's 2-0. It's really fun to play. It's really fun to kind of manipulate those resources on the back end and have that hardware doing its thing and pulling back imps to pull shots, and then getting that Stargate out there and running R&D. So there's some really good, for me, there's some really good stuff going on. And so, yeah, that's it. You all let me know what you think I can do better on this deck, and if there's any way that I could focus the deck in more on a particular win condition. That's one of the things I need for y'all to talk to me about in the chat, if you can as well. I've gotten to a place pretty much where on the corp side I can understand what the winning condition is and I can go for it. I'm really focused on that win condition so often, and I used to be the opposite. I had no clue how to do the win condition on the corp, and the runner I felt halfway proficient at. But now, based upon what I've learned over this period of time, the corp I really feel like has a very focused win condition that I can really concentrate on, while the runner has to be more adaptive and all. And I'm constantly struggling to say, let me have a deck that does this really well as a win condition. Like, my sole purpose is to really bust out and take down R&D or whatever. So I need, if I could get somebody who'd be interested, maybe even coming on the show and talking about it with me and explaining to me what a win condition really looks like and how to build a deck for a win condition with the runner, right? So Anyway, that is this deck building video. I'm not going to take up any more of your time. This is the deck. I'll be playing for a little while and modded, and we'll see how it goes. So talk to you all later.